period. On my black, brown, and indigenous. Gotta holler if you really feeling this. Gotta holler if you really real enough. Other rappers is delirious. Yeah, it's really that serious. Better holler if you really feeling me. I gotta keep it 100, ayy. If you don't like it, then fuck it, ayy. We gonna win in the end, yeah, we gonna live in abundance. I gotta keep it 100, ayy. If you don't like it, then fuck it, ayy. We gonna win in the end, yeah, we gonna. I gotta keep it 100. We gotta stop all the stunting. You know we coming from nothing. Yo, you talking about money, you bluffing. We gotta do something different. We gotta change how we live in. We gotta do better for women. We gotta do better for children. We gotta listen to victims, whether Jewish or Muslim or Christian. It doesn't matter your religion. You gotta stand against the system, or else you just another villain. How you just sitting there chilling?
Some of my Republican friends want to take the economy hostage. I get it, unless I agree to their economic plans. All of you at home should know what those plans are. Instead of making the wealthy pay their fair share, some Republicans want Medicare and Social Security to sunset. I'm not saying it's a majority. Let me give you, anybody who doubts it, contact my office. I'll give you a copy. I'll give you a copy of the proposal. That means Congress doesn't vote. Well, I'm glad to see you. And I tell you, I enjoy conversion. You know, it means if Congress doesn't keep the programs the way they are, they'd go away. Other Republicans say, I'm not saying it's a majority of you. I don't even think it's even a significant, but it's being proposed by individuals. I'm not politely not naming them, but it's being proposed by some of you. Look, folks, the idea is that we're not going to be moved into being threatened to default on the debt if we don't respond. Folks.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Jabari Vok Podcast. I am your host, of course, Jamarl Jabari. I am here with a special guest, someone who is always in my ear almost every single weekday morning, talking about a lot of great topics, which is similar to things that I talk about here on this podcast, keeping it music, politics, and culture as always. But right now we are on the politics part, in the culture part, actually. That was a clip that I just showed. Hello, Manlia Chan. How are you?
Hello, Jamarl. Nice to be on with you. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. You guys talked about this guy, our president, for right now,
Yes.
earlier today, and the State of the Union, as you guys said earlier, which I agree with, it's a lot of optimism going on, and even in that video clip, which kind of sounded like we were in the UK for a second, and there was like a whole lot of Tories just yelling, which I think is actually healthy for politics. I think that that's the culture we should be doing. Before we get to the whole Medicaid and Social Security part of that, what do you think about the address as a whole?
Well, first, I'm going to say I'm with you that I thought I had tuned in to watching the House of Commons in the UK because this was the most raucous State of the Union. And I've never used that word before to describe the State of the Union address, but we heard a lot of boo and claps and jeers. And that is not normally the decorum that happens when you're at the State of the Union here in Capitol Hill, right? And usually it's very subdued and people just kind of clap politely. So that was kind of a real change up, I think, in the feeling, the vibe that was displayed here in Washington. So I'm with you. I think that is great because it was fun to watch. Whoever says State of the Union is fun to watch. It was fun to watch.
All right.
It was strange to see people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, shouting. You can read her lips. She was shouting, liar. You can read the new Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy. He was very polite. He didn't do what Nancy Pelosi did, 3 years ago. No, extended clap, and no tearing of the papers. But you
The
can
shit
read
lips
his
love
lips.
that.
I know, but he was definitely, very polite, and he said, "That's not true. That's not true." You can read his lips. So there was a lot of action, I guess, that way if you're
Hmm.
you're viewing this like a spectator sport. So I kind of appreciated that. But overall, the speech was just a whole lot of platitudes. It was
Right.
everything. Um, it was everything I had anticipated it was going to be. That he was going to not get into any particular roadmap of where this country is going, because that's supposed to be what you use the State of the Union for. Um, you're supposed to obviously say, this is what it looks like right now, and this is the direction I want to go. And I feel like Joe Biden really failed in delivering that roadmap, no plans of where the direction this country is going. I mean, we all know where we're at, but he gaslit all of us, right? And told us not to believe our pocketbooks. He told us not to believe the prices that we're seeing for a dozen eggs that are, north of $8
Right.
along the eastern seaboard. How are you going to lie to me and
Right.
tell me that inflation is down, the economy is doing great? Who who is you how is this normal that we're paying $8 for a dozen eggs? So he
Right.
just sat there and gaslit the whole country. So to me, it was, not that different than what I would say any president of the United States
Right.
does. They always gaslight us. They always tell us not to believe our own eyes, our own pocketbooks, our own experiences. But this time, at least it was fun because the lawmakers were acting like this is the UK, and I was just waiting for a shoe to fly across the camera.
Right. Right. And like just look at Margie Taylor Green in that beautiful fur coat. Like, how corrupt is she right now on the level of corruption? Just like she really thinks that she's like a freedom fighter and stuff while just wearing stuff like that. So obscene. These rich people, those guys. I'm a poor man. I'm a union guy. Those guys, everybody in there, they're rich. A lot of money. A lot of money is in
There's a
there.
lot of money.
Does any of them represent us?
No. See, I don't know about her corruption in particular. I mean, I'm not like, she's relatively new to Congress, so there's still a
Right.
lot more to be learned about her. I mean, we know she's eccentric. I mean,
Yeah.
I hate to admit that sometimes I have agreed with her, but that's why I say I'm a
Hmm.
centrist, right? Because I
Right.
don't, I don't fall in line with any one party. So there have been times that I have agreed
Hmm.
with her, which is, I never would have imagined I would agree with somebody like her. But in terms of
Hmm.
corruption, I haven't seen yet, but she's also very new, right? So she's
Yeah.
she's very new at this, so we don't know yet what kind of corruption she will be involved in. But I think in general, when you're talking about people in Congress, um, there are those few exceptions like her that she came out of the blue, out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Um,
Out of
and
nowhere.
out of nowhere. So they kind of represent like the normies, right? Like the normal people that got elected to office recently. So they haven't had a
Right.
chance. They haven't had a real chance yet to really dig in the way somebody that's entrenched like Nancy Pelosi or Joe Biden has been after
The
decades in
supercells.
power. Yes,
Yeah.
they're decades in
Yeah. Yeah.
power, and they got their hands real dirty with corporate America and getting their palms
Right.
greased with their super PACs and what have you. So she's not quite there yet. So I would reserve, I put a pause button on calling her corrupt just yet. Crazy, sure.
I
Corrupt, I
will.
don't know yet.
I'll put a pause. Yeah, and I feel like that she's really getting to her role. Like I feel like she's getting groomed to be like really big soon.
Yep.
Like how the Democrats wanted to groom Tulsi Gabbard before Tulsi Gabbard
Mm.
showed I speak my own mind. Um, so you would never know. So you're right. Maybe I am jumping the gun with her, but I already know that like what she wants for a Republican bill with funding to go towards more war with China and also the border. I'm just like, dude, like you don't even want peace. You just want to reallocate where we going to fight at. Like
Well, I mean, if you look at it that way,
um
I don't think there's any
oh,
difference between the
go
two
ahead, sorry.
parties, really.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, we're cutting in and out, but, if you look at it that
Right.
way about what she's backing, it's a matter of, okay, The Republicans want a war with China, and the Democrats want a war with Russia. Are either one better because of it or
Right.
for it? I would say no, because at the end of the day, I think most people don't want war with anybody. So these two parties, I mean, it's
Right.
really just, two wings on the same bird. And at
Right.
when you count up all the dollars and who's donating where, it all goes back to the military industrial complex and big corporations. So it's just a matter of which country you want war with. And I don't think either party, is right or ethical in trying to field war.
Right. I told one of my friends, actually, you know them, Chris Graffa.
Oh
Um
yes.
I yeah, I've organized with Chris Graffa, and Danny Shaw used to be a part of our party, but he left for about some years now. And I was talking about this with Chris Graffa, and I was saying that um you know like these guys, the Democrats are so much more dangerous when it comes to that realm of war than the Republicans are. Because the Republicans, they'll start a war and everybody's like, oh, hell no, as they should be. But then the Democrats do it, and it's just like, well, it's because of this. Putin's evil, like he's crazy, and it's hard to have a conversation with these people because that don't want to believe it. It's easy to have a conversation with majority of Americans that are very skeptical of war. I'm gonna put that out there. But for people that are hardcore with the Democratic Party, it's hard for them to see the light that, I mean, the Democrats are a little bit more violent in a way if you want to look at how they run things. Obama started 7 wars his last term. Bush only did 2. And I'm not saying that's okay, but I'm saying that shows you what they could get away with.
Well, I mean, Obama in his first year in office, literally within, I don't know, the first 9 months in office, I believe, is when they gave him the Nobel Peace Prize. And in those first 9 months in office, he approved 56 different drone strikes across the Middle East where you're killing whole families, right? We know that over 90%, it's something like 92 or 93%, something very obscene, that the people that die in these drone strikes, 92, 93% of them are the wrong people, right? They're just
Right,
collateral damage. And here's Barack Obama, a Democrat, the hope and change guy, talking about peace. Meanwhile, behind our backs, he's killing in our name. And 93% of those people are the incorrect people. And then we go and give him $1 million check and a Nobel Peace Prize. So if you have somebody like that representing your party, and that's what peace looks like, that's definitely not a party
right,
I want to be a part of. And you definitely don't speak
right,
for me if that's what you're going to
right,
do. If you're going to, paint a rosy picture, yeah, fine. He's the first minority president. He's young. He's got swagger. He's got a big smile. Got the beautiful family and all that. That was all veneer. Underneath it was a man that, if you look at the actual stats, it was a
hmm
man that represented a party that was all in favor of these drone strikes, all in favor of. Uh, I mean, I guess there's no other way to describe it except like bloodlust. It just
right.
sounds disgusting.
Yeah, and Obama literally got away with it because he's not a Republican. And everybody knows that those drone strikes have killed innocent people. But I don't hear anyone holding them accountable unless voices like you or Jamarl Thomas, Chris Graffa, Danny Shaw. You don't hear anybody else besides that a media that's the Russian bots
Right,
that
right.
are
We're
reminding
Russian
people.
collusion. We're
Right, we're
Russian
all Russian.
collusion. All of us.
And the tokenism with Obama, how the Democrat Party used him with remanufacturing Martin Luther King's dream, which Martin Luther King never said anything about wanting a black president, but apparently that was a new thing that apparently he wanted. We can't check with him because he's dead, but I'm pretty sure everything I wrote I mean, I wrote everything he wrote about and everything we read about him. He's never mentioned I want a black president. And
I don't think he was
we,
specific about race, honestly, except that
right,
I think he specifically, and because a lot of the stuff he said was written, you can see that he actually wanted race to not be the center of attention.
right, right. He wanted peace and equality for all, and that's it. But
All.
it was just like it's about him being a black president, and like, no, it's not. And then you see this tokenism get stronger and stronger. And back to the State of the Union, they brought Tyrese Nichols' family there, and that pissed me off to the highest degree when I was watching that. And I like I don't know how can people. I mean, I spoke to some friends that work at the job, and they were not polite about it. So I'm happy that people are like, no, this isn't a good idea. But just it's just shows how performative Biden is. And it's
Yeah.
all just mirrors.
No, I think you're right. It's performative because right now Tyree Nichols is the hot cultural topic, right? Within
Right.
the Black community, at least, and we know that the Black community is the one of the core bases for the Democrat Party, for Joe Biden's party. So inviting Tyree Nichols' parents, who are grieving right now, um, is I look at it as a level of exploitation. Like you said,
Mm,
a little bit of if you look deeper, it's kind of the tokenism of saying, look, I brought this
yeah.
poor Black family who just lost their child. They just buried their child a few days ago. Um, look, and police brutality, but then he says nothing about what he would do about it, any kind of
Right.
police reforms, any kind of
Right.
prison reform, nothing about justice, right? He just says, look, up in the stands, I brought a Black family here.
Right.
And then people are like, oh, yay, yay. And next to him, or his family, next to Tyree Nichols' family, was
Hmm.
Brandon Say, the
Yep.
young Asian man who wrestled the gun away from the Chinese New Year, the lunar celebration shooter. Um,
Hmm.
and yes, he's a hero, and he pointed that out. He didn't say much in the way of, gun reform, but he at least said something about gun reform, right?
Right.
He said ban all automatic rifles or something to that effect. Still platitudes, nothing serious, but just talking points, and Democrats stand up and clap.
Yep.
But there was no real plan, no
None.
reference to the Constitution, the Second
No.
Amendment. No, the fact that the Second Amendment does not define what kind of arms we can or cannot bear. And
Right.
unless you literally go through the entire constitutional process and ratify by the Constitution by adding an amendment,
Hmm.
there's really nothing you can do about it.
Right. Right. And it's funny how he's able to comment on that, but he's not able to comment on the police part because he wrote the crime bill. And we know that he wrote the crime bill, and people forget conveniently that he wrote the crime bill, but that's okay. And the whole thing with the shootings, the mass shootings and stuff, they know that there's ways of making this a better place if you have to literally do what Australia did. Okay. I mean, as a socialist, I am pro gun, but I am also pro guns, making sure that they are educated.
Sure.
People know
Yeah.
what they're using. And these firearms are locked up in a certain place that's adjacent. Um, there's other ways that we can talk about gun control, but the fact that it's always a rhetoric of repeating and repeating, like all I hear is repeating. I mean, I live in Connecticut where Sandy Hook happened, and
Yeah.
I think we did a decent job, but they forgot the urban communities. We got gun violence every single day.
Yeah.
And our activists get no type of like news coverage because we're literally out there saying, okay, we want to end the violence. No, the news coverage says, oh, look, they don't care about the people shooting their own. No, we actually fucking do. It's just ridiculous that there is he shows me how out of touch he is, and especially with the welfare and the Social Security as well too. What was your thoughts on that? The welfare and Social Security.
Well, he didn't say anything about it. He just
Yeah.
he just said these guys, these Republican people, the ones with the R after their name, they want to
Hmm.
cut it. And that's when you saw Kevin McCarthy go, "That's not true." Like his mouth, you can read it. He's like, "That's not true." And he made a face like he tried to hold it because he knows the camera's on him, right? So he's
Right.
sitting there like a hostage and his mouth was like, "That's not true." But his eyes, he was like trying to hold it back. And Kamala Harris is like, "Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are." And he's like, "That's not
She
true."
another
Then,
token.
yes, then they pan the camera around to the room because the Republicans are going ape shit over this, right? Because they all know it's not true. And Joe Biden is
Right.
just maligning them because it's a great soundbite for, MSNBC later or CNN later to say the
Yep.
Republicans want to gut Social Security and blah, blah. No, no, no. The
Yep.
Republicans were not talking about gutting entitlement programs. They're talking about spending. That's what the
Mm,
Republicans were talking about. They were talking about gutting and cutting up that spending bill, which President Biden wants to continue to do. He wants to
right.
not to gut it. He wants to keep spending on stuff that isn't already written into law, like Social Security. Nobody's talking
Hmm.
about cutting Social Security. What Biden, what he should have said, which should have been the truth, number one, should
Right.
have been that Social Security is not on the chopping block. What we need, we need to work together in a bipartisan way to figure out
Hmm.
the money that we're spending, not on entitlements. It's the other budgetary stuff, like
Right.
sending $120 billion to Ukraine, um, or obviously just overall cutting some of the federal defense budget, the DoD budget, which is if you keep adding these additional things that we're sending, we're well over the $800 billion. I mean, you might as well go for the 1 trillion mark at this point, right?
Right.
So he's being dishonest and disingenuous when he just tries to point the blame over there to that guy with the R next to his
Hmm.
name, because that's just patently not true. But I will say I agreed with him. It's a platitude talking point. There was no meat on these bones, but
Right.
I agree with the sentiment of, cutting drug prices, making insulin, a flat, what did he say, 25 or $35. I do agree with
Yeah.
that,
Me
but give
too.
me a roadmap. Give me a roadmap.
Right.
What's your roadmap? How do you get there?
Right.
What are you
Right.
going to do? Are you going to release the patents on all of this? Are you going to allow Americans on Social Security, on Medicare, Medicaid to buy from across the border in Mexico or in Canada? Can we ship it, from Europe? Open up. I mean, that's where big pharma comes into play. And he will not touch that. He won't say that
Hmm.
because big pharma, obviously, if the Grammys are funded by Pfizer, what do you think Pfizer is funding for the DNC? So he's
Right.
not going to touch that. There are so many drugs that overseas they are out of patent, and we as
Hmm.
Americans can get them for pennies on the dollar, and we
Right.
can't because there are federal regulations that basically would say that you and I are drug smugglers if we went across the border to Canada and
Right.
literally brought back something as innocuous as amoxicillin. We would be drug smugglers if it was over 21 pills. So you better
Right.
bring in
Right.
20
Yeah.
of
Bring it to like.
penicillin. Like, this is crazy. He didn't
Right.
give us a
It is.
roadmap, but he said the right things, but there was no roadmap. So when you and again, I've been covering this stuff for a very long time. So
Hmm.
when you hear a politician only speak in talking points and with platitudes, only using platitudes, and they don't provide even a little bit of a roadmap, it means that there is nothing there. There's nothing there. They
Right.
don't mean to do it, because if they had a means to do it, they would have provided at least a little bit of detail, and he didn't do that. He just said, "I'm going to get you cheaper medicine, old people." Okay, how?
Yeah, exactly. And also, my thing about Biden, a lot of people say, I remember Kyle Kalinske actually talked about this on Joe Rogan's podcast recently about Biden having failures. I don't think Biden is having failures. He already told his rich people that nothing's going to change. So the Medicare for All bill, that's going to go down the drain. The Breathe Act, huh? No, we ain't doing that. Like, this dude will hype it up, but just like you're saying, he doesn't have a plan. He's just going to say it because he wants to say it, and it's going to
It
look
sounds
good
good.
to the Democrats. That's it.
It
But
sounds
the
good for
end
the
game
sound
is
bites.
right. The end game is I'm gonna screw you over. That's the end game.
Right. The end game is we're
um,
not going to do anything. We're not doing
right.
anything. That's what the ultimate outcome is going to be. I mean, he did talk about passing the PRO Act, which would have been the basically unionizing
Yep.
agreement, but then
That would be
he
nice in a
failed.
way.
But he failed to mention that his administration intervened in the rail strike. I mean, I brought that up during
Right.
Fault Lines the other day, where I was like, "Are you crazy?" That was the soundbite that I chose to play on the show because I was going,
Mhm.
"Wait a minute, you're going to sit here and tell me you care about working people and that people should be able to have unions, put their unions together, don't block the unions, but you just block the unions." You just blocked the train unions.
Yep.
Like, does
Yep.
this crazy old man not know, or does he just not care that he actually did that? And he tried to literally pull the wool over our eyes and tell us that he cares about workers and cares about unions when he just told all the train workers, literally before Christmas, he told the train workers, F all of you, get back to work. Y'all are going to be happy with one day off paid. Shut up and get back on the train.
Yep. Yep. Now, Manila, I want to go. Manila, I want to go into the sabotage actually with the pipeline because I was reading a little bit of that, and I think that's very important to talk about.
Yeah.
Um, I see that we got a little bit more time, so I'm gonna play this clip real quick for everyone to see exactly what we're talking about. This is from Rising, which I'm a big fan of Brianna. She's dope.
A new revelation broke this week about what caused last year's explosion of Nord Stream gas pipelines in the Baltic Sea. Investigative journalist Seymour Hersh alleges the U.S. is behind the attacks. Writing in a Substack, the White House ordered the strike as part of a covert operation carried out under NATO training exercises last summer.
According to Seymour, it was then that the U.S. divers planted the explosives that were remotely detonated 3 months later, disabling the pipelines. In his Substack, Seymour Hersh writes that a spokesperson for the CIA vehemently denies this claim. So I read the Substack post. It was very long.
I actually don't want to hear what he has to say because this guy is skeptical as hell. So it's my show, and I don't want to continue that clip right there.
I don't blame
He's
you.
literally saying that Seymour has been wrong on certain things, so that's why I don't really believe him yet, dude.
He had no. Really?
Dude, the guy, yeah.
He's going to criticize Seymour Hersh, who has a stellar track record his whole 70 years or whatever that he's not 70, maybe 60 years that he's been reporting. Give me a break.
Right. No, exactly. What the hell happened? I know that a lot of us knew that the U.S. is involved, but no one expected this to come out. Like, could this be a big deal, or is this going to get washed up?
Well, our media, the American mainstream media is, that's the most you're going to see out of it was on Rising, right? And that's not even broadcast on TV. That's a streaming show. But the majority of the mainstream media, the legacy media on TV, which most viewers in America still use regular TV, they're never going to see that story. They're never going to know. Seymour Hersh, with all due respect to him, he's, what they would consider a thing of the past. He's a relic of the past, right? So nobody thinks that he's even publishing anything new because most people probably don't even know that he's still alive, right? That's number one. And then number two, the way the administration has spun it to just categorically deny it, again, gaslighting us and telling us not to believe, 2 + 2 = 4, when you've heard Joe Biden over and over be like, that pipeline's not going to go on. And you've heard Victoria Nuland's like, It's just a hunk of metal at the bottom of the sea.
Right?
Cackle, cackle. Like, okay, we're like, who done it? The Russians did it. They blew up their own $13 billion because that's what people like to
Yeah.
do, right? They just like to blow up their
Right.
own $13 billion. So again, I think we've gotten to this place of conditioning in the country, and I think COVID pushed us over the edge, right? Of mind conditioning, mental conditioning, that we have shut down critical thinking, and not everybody, but most of the country has shut down critical thinking to not see that 1 + 1 + 1 = 3, because the government
Right.
is telling us that equals 9. And we're like, okay, I'm going to go with that, because we don't want to have to do the simple math. The simple
Right.
math has been there. Who else would have done it? Who would benefit? I mean, when you do those murder mystery games or whatever, you have to think about motive. Who would have the best motive to
Right.
blow up the pipeline? Why would it be the Russians? That makes zero sense whatsoever. And then you have these cast of evil characters, like Anthony Blinken, you have Victoria Nuland, you have Jake Sullivan.
Yep.
When you have people like that in the lineup, come on, they have guilty written all over their faces. And then they open their mouths and they tell us, they've told us that they're guilty. They've told us
Fed
without
face.
actually saying the Fed face. That's Jake Sullivan's got a Fed face. Ned Price has got a Fed face. Like they look like you can't, they're spooks. You can't trust them. But they verbally told us, and then they're going to tell us not to believe what we just watched them say, which is the
Right.
worst part. So they are playing Americans for a bunch of fools. They think everybody is stupid, and that they think they can malign. I mean, they can't malign Seymour Hersh. That's the thing. Cy Hersh is literally a journalistic legend. He has a stellar track
Right.
record. Nothing has ever been proven false. There's nothing. So unless they're going to come out with some magic, child porn, because they do that too, because they can do that
Yeah.
remotely and put it in your computer, right? And be like, oh, we want to take this guy down. Oh, let's just plant some child porn in that guy's computer. Unless they're going to
Yeah.
say Grandpa Seymour Hersh is a child molester or whatever, there's no other way you can malign Seymour Hersh. His reporting is stellar track record, and I believe every word that he wrote. And maybe some people are going to say, that's my willing ignorance to believe because, I'm a Russian bot or whatever. But the facts are facts. It's been in front of us. We've heard the words coming from all the cast of characters, right? It's like all the Disney villains all in one, and in Joe Biden's cabinet. They've all said that they were going to do something. Then we have a text message from Liz Truss to Anthony Blinken to say, it is done. What's done? What's done?
What's done?
You texting your friend Anthony to tell him you went shopping and bought new shoes? Like what's done?
Right. So sus. And we could go on and on. There's a lot of things that are going to come up and stuff. So for people, to my little viewers, we're not going to stop talking about this. I hope y'all know, right? Season
I'm
4
glad.
is going to be packed with this information. So
I'm
shout out to
glad.
Tommy Nation, because I'm gonna need some help, Tommy. I need some help, Tommy Nation. But I want to
I'm
thank you
glad to
so
see
much.
young people like you, Jamar. I'm
Oh,
really
thank
glad
you.
to see young people like you putting the word out there, talking to your communities, because I think it's the younger people like you that aren't getting hoodwinked by the people my age and older who grew up with
Mhm.
legacy media. And we have been conditioned to trust legacy media despite
Mhm.
the obvious facts in front of us. It's young people like you who, well, I mean, let's face it, you know how to use the internet, because I'm still kind of boomery when it comes to some stuff. But you're native to the internet, and you guys know how to, you're like super sleuths, right? Like that's how all these murders get solved, these
Yeah,
online sleuths, because of your generation. So I
I
appreciate
didn't
being
know
invited
that.
on. Well,
Wow,
yeah,
we
it's
actually
all
do
young
that.
people. It's all you
That's
young
dope.
people. It's all you young people solving like unsolved murders and stuff that police departments, if they put it on their if they put out whatever, like a cold case, it's all people like your
Hmm.
age that are like during COVID, they were bored and they solved some murders.
That's amazing. I need to look into that. I just learned something new.
Yeah, it's really cool. So I have hope that your generation, the Zoomer generation, as it were, that you guys are going to be the ones to spread real news, because it's my generation that created fake news. So I'm, heartened by all independent little media like you.
Right, right. Yeah. Thank you so much, Manila Chan, for coming on.
Thank you for
This was a
having me.
great, yeah, this was actually great, and I hope people learn a lot. You definitely dropped some knowledge that people should know about. And if you love this show, and the content that we're bringing on, please like, share, subscribe. I have a link on my Twitter page and my IG page, because I'm literally everywhere. People have been bothering me with like, what's your main platform? It's everything, people, because censorship
Nice.
is bad. So if you know another podcast website that needs me to come on, I'm going to go on that too. You're going to see me every freaking where. They're not going to stop me at all.
Do your thing,
So,
Jamar.
yep, definitely. And thank you so much for coming on, Manila Chan. It was great chatting with you and talking to you face to face. I'm definitely going to keep watching Fault Lines, best show on earth on Rumble. I'm Rumblers for life.
Thank you, Jamar. Good to see you. I hope I can come back on with you another time.
Definitely, definitely. And have a really good day. And to everybody else, have a great night.
Blank period, yeah. On my black, brown, and indigenous. Gotta holla if you really feeling this. Gotta holla if you really real enough. Other rappers is delirious. Yeah, it's really that serious. Better holla if you really feeling me. I gotta keep it 100, ayy. If you don't like it, then fuck it, ayy. We gonna win in the end, yeah, we gonna live in abundance. I gotta keep it 100, ayy. If you don't like it, then fuck it, ayy. We gonna win in the end, yeah, we gonna. I gotta keep it 100. We gotta stop all the stunting. You know we coming from nothing. Yo, you talking about money, you bluffing. We gotta do something different. We gotta change how we live in. We gotta do better for women. We gotta do better for children. We gotta listen to victims, whether Jewish or Muslim or Christian. It doesn't matter your religion. You gotta stand against the system, or else you just another villain. How you just sitting there chilling?